Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Wednesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got the hazardous weather graphic, and here for the Upper Tanana Valley and 40 Mile Country, wind advisory is out. That goes into effect 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, and remains in effect until midnight tomorrow night. Looking for winds to gust 20 or winds sustained 20 to 30 miles an hour with gusts of 40 miles an hour, and that'll be again occurring during the day tomorrow and tomorrow evening. And on to the river breakup map. You can see the Tanana River here is completely open, but then you get down the lower end there, and it's just mostly open on out to the Yukon. And of course the Nenana, that's been open. And the Yukon, though, well, until it gets up to Porcupine River, I mean, it's still slowly breaking up in this section here, but looks like there's some open areas through there, and then it's been really rotted ice down here on the Yukon Delta from the lower Yukon Valley. And the rivers to the north, have to wait a little longer for those to break up. And for the fire danger, less than what we saw yesterday. We had the extreme on the north side of the Alaska Range there with the winds and dry conditions. That's improved today with the precipitation that's rolled in there. Not a lot, anywhere from maybe a few hundredths to possibly 1/10 of an inch in some areas. Started getting some light rain in the Fairbanks area today. So that's really knocked that back, and we still have a few isolated areas of high fire danger as far as grass goes. Back here over the Kuskokwim Valley, kind of on the lee side of the western Alaska Range, in and around or just east of the King Salmon area, and then up, looks like toward Tanana or so. And moving on to satellite imagery, we had a low pressure area weakening pretty rapidly, and it tracked right up the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, and that brought pretty good rainfall in across south central Alaska today, with Anchorage picking about ½ an inch in 12 hours or less as this rolled through, weakening into a trough now, and anywhere from nearly an inch at Valdez fell in that same time period. Cordova picked up 1.07 inches, and Yakutat had 1.5 inches, so it's a pretty wet system, especially for April here, rolling on in to the north there, and areas, lighter precipitation amounts are still anywhere from 1 to 2/10 in areas of the Copper River Basin. And as that lifted northward, winds kicked up along the Copper River especially, anywhere from 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusts 40 miles an hour. And that extended all the way up to Delta Junction. They had gusts of 40 miles an hour today. And then rainfall amounts were lighter here across the southeast coast, anywhere from, again, a few hundredths of an inch to maybe up to 1/3 of an inch falling today. A little bit of a break back here to the west, drying out over the Kenai Peninsula, and that expanding northward across Bristol Bay. And really no precipitation, just clouds up here over the northeast interior. Arctic coast, pretty good. Areas of flurries with that batch of clouds there on areas of the western Arctic coast. Really just flurries, nothing significant. And from the central coast on down to Wainwright, Point Ley, didn't get anything, just some flurries for Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. A little bit of rain in Kotzebue, and rain at Nome, but snow at Tin City and snow at Savunga. They're kind of a sharp edge on just warm enough to get to snow, and actually Savunga is mixing with rain this afternoon. And areas of rain here with cloudy skies across the southwest interior, and pretty gusty winds there as well, with this low tracking northward here in the trough. Again, we saw gusts 25 miles an hour sustained, with gusts anywhere from 30 to 40 miles an hour across both the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and pretty windy conditions down into Bristol Bay this afternoon as well, with a more showery condition there with lighter rainfall amounts, and really not very heavy on the rainfall here over the southwest, with amounts generally 1/10 of an inch or less, just kind of a widespread area of that there. And showers possibly the west side of Kodiak Island, and this area weakening. This is all that's left. Low pressure came up, and then just as soon as it hit the coast, it just troughed out. Stronger center there over toward Eagle. Pretty tight gradient here, pressure difference. That was what kicked those winds up across Copper River Delta or the Copper River Basin today, and some moisture, rain, and showers into the northern and southeast coast. Cloudy to the south. And out in the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, really not a whole lot going on. Just clouds with light winds, a few showers of this trough here, a weak low. They're just north of the Fox Islands, creating some showery conditions. Trough extending back, brought a few sprinkles to the Pribilofs today, otherwise dry most of the day. And then mixed precipitation, pretty steady, light steady precipitation at Savunga up to the Bering Strait. Some rain, as I mentioned, in Kotzebue. Moving on to tonight's forecast. We've got 1,004 millibar low near St. Lawrence Island, so that's going to keep periods of light rain or snow going there. Winds won't be a problem though, and then snow showers still possible the western Arctic coast. Most of that moisture sliding into the Russian Far East. Rain and snow showers here up over the northwest, and still some rain, fog, and drizzle, kind of persistent but light over mostly the Yukon Delta. Showers along and west of the Alaska Range, right down across northeast Bristol Bay, and high pressure building in along the North Gulf Coast. Really is going to start shutting the shower activity off, especially late tonight and into tomorrow. But warm front moisture sliding northeastward here. That's going to keep it wet. Another increase in the rainfall there for the southeast coast. And that's the next system. They'll be coming northward tomorrow. And gale warnings are out for the Barren Islands and the western North Gulf Coast, 35 to 40 knot winds, and a pretty good shot of moisture with that. Probably see moderate rain at Kodiak here, moving into in the later part, or in the afternoon. The wind and rain will come up there first and then spread north, and eventually some rain chances increase over the southeast coast. We can still see a partly sunny day for the southern panhandle with milder temperatures, and also partly to mostly sunny up in the Tanana Valley there, eastern, and with the winds coming down, or I'm sorry, the winds coming up. Got the wind advisory out through tomorrow, and then a trough keeps it unsettled out here, but really not very strong system there, just clouds and showers or areas of rain, drizzle, fog, and that same pattern extends right out over the Bering Sea with a couple of really weak low centers out there, and just really nothing at all as far as any weather features over the eastern and southeast Bering. And then for Friday, that low tracks northeastward there, and that's going to bring some pretty gusty winds in across everywhere from Bristol Bay across southern Alaska here. Again, winds kicking up to possibly as high as 50 miles an hour in gusts through the Copper River Basin. Same thing, maybe even strong, higher gusts, Anchorage Hillside, Turnagain Arm, and the higher terrain of south central Alaska. Another trough brings showers into Kodiak, and low holds together pretty well as it moves into the Kuskokwim Valley here, 993 millibars. And the trough through here will be isolated thunderstorms possibly developing there in the Tanana Valley back down toward Minchumina possibly, or Toledo, and just isolated showers to the north. Still a chance of flurries on the western Arctic coast there. Kind of breezy, picking up at offshore flow. That's going to make for a partly sunny afternoon from Kivalina to Kotzebue. Seward Peninsula looking pretty good. Weak low pressure brings areas of light rain, fog, drizzle in across the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula, and kind of a wet, dreary day all the way back to about Atka. A little bit of improvement farther to the west. Looking at the low temperatures for tonight, mid to upper 40s for the southeast coast, 35 to 40 here across southern Alaska, set milder down toward the Copper River Basin. Upper 30s for the Tanana Valley, that extends right out to the Seward Peninsula, and then teens, west central Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow, mid to upper 20s up along the Arctic coast, maybe into the 30s on the north slope into the Brooks Range, 55 to 62 north of the Alaska Range here into the upper Yukon Valley over toward Eagle, and 50s to lower 60s warmest there with the sunshine down over the southern panhandle, 40s to near 50 Alaska Peninsula. And then your lows Friday morning shaping up like this again, mid to upper teens, central eastern Arctic coast 20s into the Brooks Range. South of the mountains though, lows 35 to 43 in the Tanana Valley. That pattern extends right down to the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island. Lows in the mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians. That'll be followed by highs Friday afternoon, anywhere from 57 to 65 here north of the Alaska Range up to the upper Yukon Valley, and 50s in their 60s south central Alaska, mid-20s there central Arctic coast, near 40 over the Bering Sea, the Pribilofs, lower 40s for the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Thursday morning. Mostly VFR here over the central eastern interior, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, actually from Kodiak right on up into the western Copper River Basin. IFR up there, North Slope, Arctic Coast. More IFR here at Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island. Down along the Yukon Delta coast to Nunivak Island. Otherwise marginal on down to the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay in the southwest interior. And a little bit of improvement farther out to the west. IFR here from the roughly the Gulf right in across the northern panhandle, marginal to the south with the afternoon losing the IFR, but not much change in the marginal VFR pattern there. And VFR over towards Stewart, Wrangell, Petersburg, maybe even Juneau in the afternoon. IFR here right up along the coast, moisture streaming northward with that next big storm coming up. So tomorrow afternoon, Kodiak Island right up in the southern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast. IFR, VFR in the interior, IFR western central Arctic coast, and just some patchy areas of IFR out over the Bering Sea. And then for Friday morning, IFR zone down here over the central Aleutians, otherwise marginal, and narrow strip of IFR there coming across Gambles. Savunga may be marginal, and then that goes up to just off the western Arctic coast, marginal VFR, central western North Slope. Pretty good VFR here in the interior. IFR, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, definitely Kodiak up along the eastern slopes of the at least portion of the western Alaska range there, and some marginal VFR, central western panhandle. And for the afternoon, some IFR slips on in, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, possibly down to around Juneau, and then better conditions on down to the southeast. Narrow band of IFR along the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound, Whittier, and probably even into Portage there, and then marginal VFR Cook Inlet, IFR, eastern slopes of the mountains here, it extends right down into northeast Bristol Bay, and just a few areas of marginal VFR in the interior with the best conditions to the east. And out here in the west, marginal VFR, a couple patches of IFR way out there in the middle of nowhere and just east of St. Matthew Island. Passes Anaktuvik tomorrow, both Anaktuvik and Atigan, marginal VFR at times, and Lake Clark and Merrill starting out marginal, becoming VFR by late morning or noontime, maybe sooner. Same trend for rainy, windy, marginal VFR maybe becomes VFR during the morning. Isabel, same pattern. Mentasta, I think will be VFR the entire stretch of the day. And for Tanita, good VFR there as well. And Portage, with the moisture coming up in the afternoon here, sliding up, we'll go VFR to IFR in the afternoon on the eastern entrance, and then otherwise just marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR improving to marginal. And for the freezing levels, kind of a cold pocket sliding on up to the northeast here tomorrow morning, kind of following in the system today. 2,000 feet there over the Copper River Basin, Alaska range areas, and a pretty good gradient here across the southeast coast, 4 to 10, 11,000 feet, 2,000 feet here out in the west and along the southern part of the Brooks Range, and chilly conditions out over the Bering Sea and Aleutians. Icing, this area will be shifting northeastward, and look for some considerable moderate to reach Kodiak Island or make landfall on the east side there into Fognak Island. During the afternoon, increasing chances of light rime icing here along the eastern Gulf Coast, right on down to the Alaska Peninsula. This area out here, just areas of possible isolated considerable moderate, but mostly probably won't be any at all, just isolated light rime icing above about 5,000 feet there. And moving on to the jet stream. Trough here out over the Bering Sea. This one not moving a whole lot. These are coming a little faster to the east there. Southeasterly winds, 110 knots, Gulf of Alaska bending around this high here. That's ridged over the panhandle tomorrow. And for the 9,000 foot winds, here's the next big storm coming northward here. 40 to 45 knot winds increasing throughout the afternoon, western North Gulf Coast. Kodiak and 3,000 feet, same thing, 30 to 35 knots in the afternoon, and that'll increase as the low center pulls up tomorrow night. Pretty light winds out over the Bering Sea in the north and over the panhandle. Just really a lack of a gradient out there. And for turbulence, again, in the afternoon, occasional moderate chop on the increase here, Kodiak Island first, shifting up to the southern Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet in the afternoon, and the light to isolated moderate chop also in the increase from south to north-northwest. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
It used to be that you could only warn one person about a tornado after it had already blown down someone else's barn.
Now, on average, we're able to issue a tornado warning 15 minutes before the tornado's even there, and that wouldn't be happening without Doppler radar.
This NextRad system has reduced fatalities on the order of 45% due to tornadoes since its advent.
We have a lot more information now about storms and being able to understand how they develop, how they produce severe weather, and how that information might be used to improve warnings for our National Weather Service partners.
The lab is unique in that we serve the nation by supporting the National Weather Service in its mission to protect lives and safe property by improving the accuracy and the lead time of severe weather warnings.
We have a legacy of radar research and converting existing technology from military to weather purposes.
A recycled Doppler radar led to the development of NextRad, installed nationwide in the early 90s. It allowed forecasters to see storms like never before.
Not only did we help bring that technology to the National Weather Service and to help protect lives and property, but we have continued to upgrade that technology, keep it relevant, and keep it state-of-the-art.
Recently, a major upgrade was added. Dual polarization technology takes the radar from 2D to 3D. Forecasters now know more about what type of precipitation is falling, which is very helpful during winter storms, as well as how much rain is accumulating, resulting in better flash flood warnings. The radar can also detect and track tornadoes based on debris. Looking to the future, the National Severe Storms Lab is testing the capabilities of phased array radar. Originally used by the U.S. Navy, the antenna scans the skies electronically rather than mechanically, allowing the radar to focus on a storm.
With current technology, we get a full picture or image of what is going on within a storm every 4 to 5 minutes. So it's more like a snapshot. Whereas with phased array radar, we get that picture of what's going on in the storm every minute, so it becomes more like watching a movie. So we can do adaptive, rapid scanning on the storms that matter most, being able to provide the information that's most relevant when and where it's happening.
Another advantage of phased array radar is its multifunction capability, providing weather and air traffic information simultaneously.
Number one, it is a system that promises to replace and expand upon the existing weather surveillance radars. Secondly, to replace aging air traffic surveillance radars. And number three, it offers a potential application to meet Department of Homeland Security and defense requirements for identifying and tracking non-cooperative aircraft. With the replacement of all these various radars with a single system, the American taxpayer could realize substantial savings in cost.
You have a lot fewer radars to maintain, and the electronic capability of this also reduces maintenance costs because you do not have moving parts.
Not too long ago, the ability to predict severe weather was thought to be impossible. During the past several decades, research conducted at the National Severe Storms Lab has developed life-saving tools like Doppler radar. We've progressed from no warning of threatening weather to about a 15-minute lead time, and current research promises to extend that much further.
Our knowledge of severe storms and how they behave, and our use and ability to use the Doppler radar technology is in a lot of cases a direct result of that close working relationship, that research to operations component that we get between the National Severe Storms Laboratory and a forecast office.
That history and understanding of how these data can be used by our users and doing the research to help advance the use of radar technology, really it's what we live for, it's in our lifeblood, it's in our history.
It's now easier than ever to be a part of weather research. We just launched the mPing app for both iPhone and Android users, and it's totally free. PING, which stands for Precipitation Identification Near the Ground, is a research project by the NOAA National Severe Storms Lab and the University of Oklahoma. With the mobile app, you can send us your weather observations on the go. Are snowflakes falling on your head? Is hail hitting your car? Just select what type of precipitation is falling and press submit. It's that easy. It takes about 5 seconds and it's anonymous. Reports can then be viewed online. Our scientists will compare your report with what the radar has detected. This helps us develop new radar technologies and techniques. Download the app today, share your reports, and let's work together to make our nation weather ready. Learn more here and follow us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing it's continuing to thin out and melt away. Just a narrow band of the heavier ice north of St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait and into the southeast Chukchi Sea. This blue area of the thinner ice really continuing to expand and back to the northwest all the way up off the central Arctic coast. Nothing south of St. Lawrence Island, and a little bit here remaining along the Yukon Delta coastline. And for the coastal water forecast here, west winds on the light side, 10 knots tomorrow on the south coast, seas 8 to 9 feet. Light winds, light variable winds over the inside water, as well as the central and southern inside waters, turning south 15, Lynn Canal, southeast 15 on the north coast to as high as 20, back up there toward Yakutat. And then that goes southwest on Friday. Otherwise, hold on to the westerly winds, central and south coast. Pick it up to about 15 knots, seas about the same. And west 10 for Clarence Strait, south winds 15 knots, Stevens Passage, and now south 20 with 4-foot seas in Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, northeast 15, seas 3 feet tomorrow. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast. Northeast 30, could come up to 35, definitely be up to 35 in the Barren Islands out of the east tomorrow. Kamishak Bay, northeast 30, Southern Cook Inlet, northeast 25, and 20 knots north of the Forelands. Outlook for Friday. Small craft advisories now for Northern Cook Inlet for east winds at 25 knots with that low center tracking up to the west here. And so 30 knots out of the northeast, Southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay again. And now we got the full gales, good gales, almost a storm, but not quite. South-southeast 45 knots, western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands. South 40 knots there across Middleton Island, and then that zone, southeast 30, 7-foot seas for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, gale warnings out for Shelikof Strait, northeast winds 35 knots from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northeast 30, east 30 off the east side of Kodiak, variable 15 for the Alaska Peninsula, southeast 15 for Bristol Bay. And then increase in the winds here on Friday, west 30 for the peninsula, same thing for Bristol Bay, seas running 6 to 8 feet. Gales, good gales right up the east side of Kodiak Island, actually from Castle Cape, right on up the zones there on the east side, and then minimum gales for Shelikof Strait. And moving on to the Fox Islands, we've got variable winds basically tomorrow at 10 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas. Really distinct lack of any significant storminess out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. We'll still go 15 to 20 knots here for the central Aleutians and about west 20 from Adak all the way out to Shemya. And then for Friday, northwest 15 to 20 from Shemya right up to Adak. Maybe some 25-knot winds south of Atka Island out of the west, and that's about it. That'd be the only place with that high of a wind. Otherwise, west to southwest, 15 to 20 for the Fox Islands. Southwest coast, south 15 tomorrow. Seas running about 4 feet. Even lighter winds to the Pribilof. Southwest 20, St. Matthew Island. Southeast 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And then for Friday, north winds come back into the picture here. As high as 25 knots for Norton Sound. And then northwest 25 here along the north of Nunivak Island. Go westerly at 25. South of the island, light winds out of the south of the Pribilofs. North 20 for St. Matthew Island. And St. Lawrence Island, same thing. North winds at 20 knots with seas 4 to 5 feet in both those areas. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, pretty light east-northeast breeze there at about 10, pick it up to 15. Central coast, 20 knots on the west side. Northeast 20, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort zone, and then southeast 20 south of Cape Thompson. And for Friday, north 15 here from Wales up to Cape Thompson. Cape Thompson up the west side, about 20 knots to say Point Lay out of the northeast. 2-foot seas. East 15 there for the central coast. And easterlies at 20 knots for the entire eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coastline. And then for tonight, wind and precipitation continues to diminish here across southeast Alaska. Still areas of showers, but nothing really significant, and really tapering off. Pretty good high building in right along the North Gulf Coast, eastern North Gulf Coast. But moisture streaming northward with the winds aloft, carrying more precipitation into the panhandle. So it's kind of unsettled here, rainy, snow showery mixture here back up to the northwest, less precipitation down in the Bering Sea. And then for tomorrow, there's the next storm coming up toward Kodiak and the North Gulf Coast. Wind and rain, gales increasing, especially overnight tomorrow night. Windy day coming up for southern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.